All right, so the plot still thickens with this whole Luis Ortiz Deontay Wilder situation. News came out today, courtesy of Boxing Scene. They had a quote in there from Luis Ortiz's manager, and he wanted to clarify exactly what happened with the Ortiz situation and why the fight is not happening. So basically, the WBC is not suspending Luis Ortiz, but what they are saying is that they're going to have him be medically examined by one of their doctors to make sure that he is physically fit to fight and that the whole blood pressure medicine will not affect him physically, so he will be able to fight. So there's no condition that will prohibit him or not enable him to fight, basically. And Luis Ortiz's manager seemed to be okay with that. And he said he respected the decision because he believed that the safety of the fighters comes first and foremost. And in his words, said the safety of the fighters was paramount above all things. So they don't seem to be too upset about this situation. And Luis Ortiz's manager said that they feel that they will be able to have a fight scheduled by the end of the year. So this whole thing is kind of crazy to me because why would it take that long to clear Luis Ortiz? Why couldn't they just have someone look at him and check him out to see if he was okay and make a determination if he was fit to fight or not? And if they felt as though he was fit to fight, why couldn't he continue to fight Deontay Wilder on November 4th? Why would that be an issue? Number one. And number two, why are people still blaming Deontay Wilder for this? This was a WBC decision. They decided that Luis Ortiz was not physically fit to fight, or they had concerns about his health. So that's why they did not allow him to fight, because he was on the blood pressure medication. And it's so convenient that Bermane Stiverne, who was a Don King fighter, was able to maintain his number one ranking and will fight Deontay Wilder as Deontay Wilder's mandatory challenger. Now, we all know the whole situation with Bermane Stiverne, how ridiculous it is for him to hold on to his ranking after having a victory over Derek Rossi in the 2-year period or 3-year period, whatever, how long it is, since losing to Deontay Wilder in decisive fashion. So that's already questionable. But as everyone all knows, he's a Don King fighter. Don King has a real cozy relationship with the WBC, always has had one in the past, particularly with Jose Sulaiman. So now his son Mauricio Sulaiman is still in charge there, so it's been kept in the family. So it would be reasonable to think that, yeah, Don King would have a good relationship with Mauricio Sulaiman since he had such a great relationship with his father. And one would speculate that that's why Bermane Stiverne is still ranked number one. And not only that, it's so convenient that Luis Ortiz is out and Bermane Stiverne is back in. So how could you blame Deontay Wilder for that? If you want to really blame anyone, you have to take a look at the WBC, and you also have to question Don King and his relationship with WBC. Again, I'm not the conspiracy theorist, but again, we've seen situations where certain promoters' fighters continue to get ranked in certain sanctioning bodies. That's no secret, and we've even seen promoters in the past bribe sanctioning bodies, and sanctioning bodies have accepted the bribes, and people who were in charge of specific sanctioning bodies were actually fired because they accepted the bribes. So this is nothing new in the sport of boxing, and obviously we don't have proof, but once again, there is circumstantial evidence. So for people to sit there and still blame Deontay Wilder for this, so you mean to tell me that Deontay Wilder's team went as far as to pay Bermane Stiverne step-aside money and really try to not fight him and fight someone else, only to have this happen? So, this makes no sense. And also, did Deontay Wilder put that substances, that were illegal in the blood pressure medicine? Did Deontay Wilder know anything about that? Did he have any knowledge of that? Did he, do anything with Alexander Povetkin's blood sample to make him fail his test too? So how much power do you guys really think Deontay Wilder has? And, at what lengths does this conspiracy theory go on with Deontay Wilder? I mean, this is turning into like a Nancy Drew novel. It's like a Columbo type thing. Like, how could Deontay Wilder cause two fighters to fail drug tests? How would he have that power? You know what I'm saying? It seems more plausible that a Don King fighter was able to hang around the rankings because of his relationship with that sanctioning body. And also, it seems to me that, Bermane Stiverne was maneuvered right back into the mix. And now we have this fight with Deontay Wilder, which is a fight that, again, he paid step-aside money to try to avoid, because we already know how the first fight went. He already remembers how the first fight went. And I don't think there's any, surprise on how this fight's going to end. It's going to take a miracle for Bermane Stiverne to beat Deontay Wilder, given how the first fight went. So I think Deontay Wilder really doesn't want this Stiverne fight, but I think Don King and his relationship with WBC and his influence with the WBC, it's more plausible to think that that's why this fight is happening, as opposed to Deontay Wilder, just not wanting to fight Luis Ortiz. And again, this is basically a media creation, this whole Luis Ortiz. Who did he really beat, besides Brian Jennings, to get the label of this boogeyman, this indestructible type fighter? I mean, he's a solid fighter, don't get me wrong. But he hasn't looked spectacular in recent fights. I mean, Eddie Hearn signed him to a promotional contract for a couple fights, and after, those fights took place, Eddie Hearn didn't want to re-sign him because he wasn't impressed with how he looked. So, I don't understand why, Deontay Wilder would be afraid of Luis Ortiz. I think that the fight was intriguing because of how the public perceived Luis Ortiz as being this, tough, indestructible boogeyman that no one wanted to fight. And that's why I think the fight was intriguing. But at the end of the day, I think, honestly, Deontay Wilder would rather have fought Ortiz instead of Stiverne. I really believe that, because there would be no reason for him to pay step-aside money to avoid to avoid Stiverne and want to fight Ortiz. So that's what I don't understand. My whole thing is, if you want to criticize anybody, criticize the WBC for keeping Stiverne as their number one contender, number one, and number two, not allowing Luis Ortiz to fight, because why would they have to prolong the whole process of it getting Ortiz examined when all you have to do is call up a doctor and examine him and basically determine if he's ready to go or if he's not ready to go, and if the blood pressure medicine has controlled his blood pressure and everything else is intact, just give him a physical. It's pretty simple and plain. So if the WBC really wanted this fight to happen, then they would have allowed Ortiz to fight, especially since Deontay Wilder said, "Hey, I want to fight the guy regardless. I don't care." So we can't blame Deontay Wilder for this. I think we have to blame the WBC, and you have to ask yourselves, did the WBC really want this fight to happen? But regardless, Luis Ortiz will probably still stay in the rankings because he's not getting suspended, and I would even go as far as to suspect very strongly that he will still be the WBA's number one contender, and maybe he'll get the Joshua fight instead. And maybe another thing too is maybe that's what the management team wanted. Maybe they saw an opportunity where, let's wait it out, let's take an interim fight, and let's get the Joshua fight for more money. So that's not out of the realm of possibility either, that maybe Ortiz's team really didn't want this fight after all, and they wanted to hold out and get that Anthony Joshua fight. That's just my opinion. Again, circumstantial evidence, Nothing factual, but I think my arguments are pretty plausible. So next time, Beaver's out. Talk to y'all soon. Peace.